rain or something.
When is it going to happen again? When are they going to do this to me again?
For these people, it's no longer a matter.
These people want to lead normal lives, but they can't, because they believe they are the objects of otherworldly interest. They are convinced that something not of this earth has abducted them. Their story starts with a sighting.
Huge sphere of light. I mean, it was gigantic. It was the size of a two-story house.
Then hours vanished from their lives, missing time.
My next conscious memory was landing very hard in the vehicle on the road, as if I'd been dropped from above. Missing about an hour and a half, and I could not account for.
These events had plunged them into a mystery that has interrupted their lives, forcing them to dig for answers to questions beyond our imagination.
My first question was, is it possible for people to be kidnapped by a UFO?
But the deeper they go into the mystery, the more questions they raise. So they turn to UFO investigators.
I get hundreds of reports each year from people just crying out for help.
Searching their past, they have come to the terrifying conclusion that they have been followed since childhood.
Ray asked if there was anything strange about our childhood. It was more like what wasn't strange about our childhood.
To unlock buried memories, they have turned to hypnosis and uncovered a possibility they find difficult to accept, yet impossible to dismiss: alien abduction. Now they are haunted by the only conclusion they can draw. Their lives will never be the same. But this man's story has just begun. Like the others, he has experienced missing time. But unlike them, he has not yet attempted to delve into his subconscious to retrieve the hidden memories, because he fears what he might find.
I want to know, but I don't want to know. It could help me. It could utterly shatter me.
Maybe he just lost track of time. Or maybe, like these others, he will conclude that he has been abducted. As this night falls, they will all tell their stories, the UFO experience as they perceive it. Perhaps they are victims of a mass delusion. Or perhaps they herald the next chapter in a bizarre tale that's haunted civilization throughout history. No one knows how this story ends, but if what these people believe is true, it will be the greatest revelation ever told, and forever change life as we know it. Are we alone in the universe? It's one of the greatest mysteries of all time. For eons, humans have seen things in the sky and wondered, is someone coming? The story of UFOs is unending, and it grows stranger with each decade. And in the last 30 years, there has been a riveting new twist: alien abduction. Abduction. It's the most bizarre and unsettling wrinkle in the UFO mystery. No one knows exactly how many people claim to have been abducted, but the number has grown steadily larger in the years since the first reports began to surface. Betty and Barney Hill, one of the first classic abduction cases. In the early 1960s, the couple, a social worker and a mailman, reported being followed by an aircraft while traveling in New Hampshire one night. They saw a bright light and realized afterward they could not account for 2 missing hours. At first, they tried to ignore the event. Then Betty began to have terrifying nightmares. Buried in her subconscious were memories of being taken aboard an alien ship and examined. Most people who heard of the case were unwilling to journey into such bizarre territory. But defense analyst Raymond Fowler and astronomer Dr. J. Hynek heard the Hills' account personally. Both men were scientifically minded and considered themselves skeptics. But they were about to undergo a transformation of their beliefs, a transformation so profound that each would eventually become a legendary UFO investigator.
I remember I listened to the Hills give their testimony before they were investigated, and they gave it to a small group. And I was sitting there with a fellow investigator looking at these people, and we sort of looked at each other, and I said, how can these nice people lie with such straight faces? And we felt that it just couldn't be. It just couldn't be.
About it. They earnestly and fully believed that this happened to them. And certainly something did happen to them. But whether it was an actual physical case of abduction, we just don't know.
But reports from seemingly credible sources kept coming in. Reports that all carried the same benchmarks. Someone sees a bright light in the sky. It overtakes them. The next thing they know, hours have vanished from their life. They try to ignore the incident, but find themselves haunted by bizarre nightmares or strange childhood memories.
If we only had 1 or 2 cases where people have relived complementary abduction experiences with the same benchmarks, we may say this is a remarkable coincidence. But we have hundreds of people who go through the same experience, sometimes in the same order, seeing the same things.
Calling about a UFO sighting yesterday. I don't know who else to call, but I've been familiar with your work for years. If it's not something...
And as the number of reported cases has grown, so too has public interest in the strange phenomenon of UFOs. Today, more and more people, like Ray Fowler and the late Dr. Hynek, feel compelled to investigate the question of alien abduction. Now retired from the defense contracting business, Ray devotes much of his free time to investigating and then publishing abduction reports. There's no shortage of work. People keep turning to him for help.
These people have flashbacks or dreams or partial memories of a UFO abduction experience. They're troubled, they don't know where to go, they try to talk to their friends, their ministers and so forth, and no one really will listen to them. And they come and they ask me to listen, and I listen.
Sometimes Ray launches a full-scale investigation, attempting to uncover what happened during an episode of missing time. Ray did just that when Jim Weiner approached him for help. Jim didn't know it yet, but he and his twin brother Jack had become part of the next chapter in the UFO story, the chapter on alien abduction.
You're watching Topx on TBS Destinations.
The people you're about to meet once led normal lives, but something interrupted those lives. They believe they've been abducted by otherworldly beings. Ray's investigations have so overtaken his life that he must now force himself to make time for his family, his garden, and this homemade planetarium. But one case held so many clues to the abduction mystery that he could not turn away. Ray calls it the Allagash abduction.
The Weiners were very interesting because here we have identical twins.
Jim and Jack Weiner, identical twins, as close as brothers can be. They came from the same egg. They finish each other's sentences. Both are artists, and both believe they've been abducted. Abducted because they are twins. They like to think of themselves as pretty average guys. Jim teaches computer art and lives in the city with his fiancée. Jack is also an artist. He works as an optical machinist and lives in the country with his wife, Mary. Identical twins. Some UFO investigators suspect a link between twins and abduction. If you wanted to study the human animal, you might find twins to be especially interesting specimens.
If you look at the UFO abduction phenomenon as a whole, you'll see that there seems to be a tremendous interest in the reproductive systems of human males and human females. So looking at it from a human point of view, what better subjects would you have for genetic engineering or genetic experience than to examine twins, especially identical twins?
Abduction was not a word in the Weiners' everyday vocabulary 20 years ago.
I've always considered myself a fairly normal type guy, you know. Just Mary and I living our lives, you know, working every day, going through the same thing, and no trauma in our lives or anything.
That world ended abruptly one summer night on a camping trip with their friend Charlie Foltz. Following their trip, the style and theme of their artwork suddenly took a radical and decidedly strange turn. They began having bizarre nightmares and found themselves overwhelmed with inexplicable fear. It seemed that something terrifying had occurred. But what was it? All that was clear was they could lose their work, their families, even their sanity, if they didn't uncover what had happened. With Ray Fowler's help, they undertook an investigation. It raised an unnerving possibility that they had never considered: alien abduction.
It takes a long time to get used to the idea of all of this. It wasn't something I found easy to cope with at first. There was a lot of feelings of uncertainty. Am I crazy? Is this some kind of physiological disease? Do I have a tumor in my head?
Today we're going to be working with images that use light and shadow to create a mysterious mood.
I like to tell people that it never really bothers me, and it's always at the backmost section of my mind. It's kind of a very mysterious setting, but in fact, it's fairly upfront in my mind every day of my life.
We don't know if she's running from somebody.
This is something I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Day-to-day basis. Imagine telling your fiancé, your parents, your boss that you believe you were abducted. Jim has no illusions about what's at stake. While his fiancée graciously allowed filming in her home, she will not appear on camera.
Yeah, my fiancé's, she tries to stay out of this as much as possible. And I think, you know, she's partially frightened about this whole thing because here she is, she's in love, she's going to marry this guy who claims these very bizarre things are happening to him, which are way out of normal. And, you know, so it makes her wonder whether her fiancé is all there. And that's frightening for her. And if she accepts it, then she has to worry about these things coming for her. I mean, when they come for me, she's here too.
But what things? Who is coming? And what do they want? Jim needs to know.
We're not doing this to entertain people. We're not doing this for 15 minutes of fame on television. I mean, we're doing this because we want to find answers.
When Ray offered to investigate their case, Jim and Jack knew that it wouldn't be a cure for whatever is happening to them. But perhaps having some answers is better than none at all. This is horse country. Appearances are everything, and tradition is king. It's a world of money, power, and influence, the perfect setting for a soap opera. But behind the gates of one horse farm, a story is unfolding that's more like the Twilight Zone than Days of Our Lives. Claire and Diana, complete strangers until 8 years ago, or so they thought. When Diana hired Claire to manage the horse farm, they both thought their meeting was just a happy business deal. Claire was a skilled equestrian and trainer who needed work. Diana was trying to hold down a full-time job with the Forest Service and run the farm at the same time. But now they believe there was nothing chance about their meeting. Now they believe it was arranged. They are convinced that they were originally brought together in childhood as part of a bizarre alien experiment, and then reunited as adults.
I can't believe how you came to the farm. It was coincidence. That had to be arranged.
Because of everything, I was totally out of character.
Claire was living a comfortable life hundreds of miles from Diana's farm. She had a good job, an ordinary lifestyle. Then one day she left it all behind for no apparent reason, just a feeling.
I had a very stable life. Although I was divorced, I raised my son alone. We had a normal lifestyle. I'd worked very hard to get my home, and I had my rose gardens, and everything was the way I wanted. I had a really good job that I'd had for years and was making a reasonable income.
But something mysterious caused Claire to pick up and leave everything she'd worked for.
One day I woke up, got halfway to work, pulled off on the exit ramp, much too early, turned around, drove home, called the office, resigned. Within 2 weeks, I was out of the house with what I could stuff in the back of my car, and I drove out of there with no idea where I was headed. I left everything. I left everything I had worked all my life for.
This was just about the time Diana needed a new farm manager.
I was desperate. I'd had 3 or 4 people come out and interview for the job, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. We weren't compatible somehow. And got this call from Claire. She showed up a couple hours later.
Then began, for both women, the strange feeling that they had somehow met before.
It was almost like I knew her. I walked her around the farm, showed her what was happening, and always in the back of my mind was, I really met this person someplace before. I hired her. She moved in the next day, started managing the farm, and that was 8 years ago.
Claire's job included room and board, so she moved onto the farm with Diana and Diana's brother and sister. Claire and Diana soon parlayed their sense of déjà vu into a strong friendship and settled down to a horse-based routine.
Our lives were relatively normal. We had, ups and downs, good times, some not so good times, but things went on pretty well. We were just normal, everyday people.
Business as usual was interrupted when bizarre events plunged Claire and Diana headlong into a search for answers that ended in one word: abduction. Since then, they've been living a nightmare.
There's days that I have that I'm not even convinced it's really happening, that it's really a dream. But then again, I think back, and dreams don't leave blood on the pillow, leaves in the bed. Dreams don't do that. So, in my mind, I know it's not a dream. I wish I were making it up. But most days, I know I'm not.
It's not like you can go to the police, you can't call 911, you can't get help. You can't even help yourself. You can't fight back.
Get mad. Go on. Okay, that's better. Pull him up and take charge. You're letting him just fly through your hands, and you are the one in charge.
The control is very important to me. I need control in this reality because I have none of it with them.
You need a little more contact with him. He's still running through your hands. He's running through your legs.
I've been that way all my life, and I had always assumed that those personality traits had more to do with me just as a person.
You are the boss, not the horse.
Than something that may in fact have come in a response to what has happened to me throughout my life.
They know some people wish they wouldn't talk about it. Claire works hard to protect her family's privacy. Diana's family refuses to appear, and they would prefer she didn't either.
It's been tough for them, almost as tough for them as it is for us, because they don't understand what's going on. They don't want to believe we're crazy, but they've known us all our lives, and going, but this person isn't known for telling tales. They're not prone to making things up. They don't lie.
But Claire and Diana know that some people think they do lie, and some think they're crazy. But there are many others who stand by them.
I've been coming here about 8 years, maybe a little longer. Well, I have no problem at all with these people. If I did, I wouldn't come here, because I can stay busy. I'm a real good horseshoer, lady. I'm sure it's hurt their business. There's no way it could have helped their business, because people don't want to come where they think that there's aliens that are getting the people. It just makes common sense. They don't bother me, they don't bother my kid. My little girl comes here, and we like them. So, I don't have any problem with it, but I don't think they were real smart to come forward with this, very honestly.
But come forward they have, with the whole story. This man, too, has had his life interrupted derailed by a strange encounter with a bright light in the sky. His name is Fred, and like the others in our story, he suffers from the mysterious malady known as missing time. But unlike them, Fred is not yet convinced that he was abducted. Until now, he has hesitated to explore his missing time because he fears what his hidden memories may reveal.
Unit 5 is clear on Meyer Street, en route to Woodstock Hill. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be driving a cab in northeastern Connecticut, I never would have believed it.
Fred is, or was, a comedian, a rising star in the world of comedy, working at the biggest clubs in the Northeast with some of the best in the business.
I'd been doing comedy for several years, and I was working 5 and 6 nights a week. My career was blossoming. I'd been named the funniest comic in Boston a few years before that.
Fred was playing the loser, and it was taking him straight to the top.
One of the best in town. He's one of the kings of comedy.
Headlining all around the country.
He's very funny and soon to be your friend.
Please welcome.
Put your hands together. A nice round of applause for the comedy of
Simply Fred. Simply Fred.
Fred.
Getting the impression my gynecologist is ripping me off. And there were the good times growing up. You know, my father used to throw me up in the air and run. When I was 15, I quit school and I ran away from home on the advice of my guidance counselor. Never cook bacon in the nude. Don't mess up your whole weekend. Thank you. Good night.
Fred won the week-long comedy riot in 1985, beating 200 other comics, including Jim Carrey.
I was working with lots of people who, you know, their careers blossomed, and, you know, I'd been at it for quite a few years and was ready to make the move into a headliner status. And then this happened, and now I'm here in the quiet corner of Connecticut.
But it's not just Fred's career that's on hold. Since the night of missing time, everything that's happened has taken a toll on his relationship with his fiancée, Nina.
At one point, she made me stop talking about it completely, which was not good for me. I mean, I couldn't... It's something I have to examine, and yet, if I'm forbidden to talk about it, where do I go? What do I do? She's finally agreed that I could examine it.
And examine it he will. Fred is about to dive headlong into the mystery of his missing time. He prays that he makes it back with his sanity intact and his world restored.
You're watching Topx on TBS Destination Sunday.
Mystery. It's a problem. A red warning light on the dashboard of the mind that says something is wrong that cannot be ignored. Whatever went wrong for Jim, Jack, and their friend Charlie, it started on a camping trip in the North Woods.
My twin brother Jack and I and 2 of our friends went on a camping trip and canoe trip to Baxter State Park in northern Maine. It's way up in the middle of the North Woods wilderness. Once you get to Telos Lake, you have to wait for the ranger to come, and he signs you in. We had planned on going trout fishing at this one pond called Smith Pond. And when he saw that that was on our itinerary, he told us that we couldn't go there. But we thought we'd check it out anyway, and because we really did want to go fishing there. And that's basically how we got into trouble in the first place. A couple of nights later, the 4 of us decided to do some fishing out on the lake. So we built this large bonfire to act as a beacon. Otherwise, you can't find your way back. made the fire, got in our canoe, left the site. We were out in the water just a few minutes.
It was very swampy, a lot of sunken trees and roots, a treacherous kind of area. Went out there, started fishing. Maybe 20 minutes into this, we weren't out there very long.
I was shining the flashlight down in the water, looking for structure that we might find some fish in. While I was looking down in the water, one of the fellows from the back yelled, "What the hell is that?"
When I turned around to see what he was looking at, here at the end of the lake, just over the tops of the trees, was this huge sphere of light. I mean, it was gigantic. It was the size of a 2-story house.
Not making any sound whatsoever.
And it just floated there. We were downwind from it. No humming, no whirring, no whistling, no buzzing, absolutely nothing. At first, we tried to figure out, tried to rationalize, well, what the heck can this thing be?
I knew all the things that it wasn't. I knew it was no helicopter.
It's not moving like a weather balloon.
So this wasn't anything that I, in my military experience, had ever seen or heard of.
So we decided, I think Charlie Folt said, well, how about if I signal it with a flashlight, see if it does anything? And we said, yeah, great idea, do that.
When I did that, a shaft of light just slammed out of the bottom of it. One instant it's not there, and the next it's there.
And the minute he signals this thing, it starts moving towards us.
I grabbed the canoe paddle, threw the blade of the paddle into the water. I started paddling as hard as I could. I locked my vision on the fire.
Jack kept looking back to see where this thing was, and he kept saying, it's gaining on us.
At that point, I think there was a kind of panic, and so we just started paddling wildly to get away from it.
I could hear the guys behind me paddling with their hands. Water splashing, yelling, "Paddle, Charlie, paddle."
It made this strange jump through space.
It's gaining on us.
It was almost right on top of us,
coming out and just enveloping us.
It can't do that. Things can't do that. The beam was just about to the back of the canoe. We're not going to outrun this thing. That was the last thing that went through my mind before we found ourselves at the beach.
Whatever it was, they had outrun it, or so they thought.
And so we got out of the canoe and we turned around, and this thing was right in front of us. I mean, it was, just maybe 30, 50 yards tops, hovering right over the water.
Then it did a really strange thing again. It seemed to implode.
Just went shh. It was that quick.
And then it would reappear higher up into the sky, real bright again. And it seemed to go higher in the sky. It was gaining elevation in steps like that, until finally it just took off like a bullet. It just went faster than that. I can't express how it was. An instant. It was gone in an instant.
We were dumbfounded. We were just standing there wondering what the heck just happened. And we seemed like we were kind of in a state of shock.
Then they discovered hours of time were missing. The first sign of it was the fire.
And when we went back to our campfire, all that was left was embers, which we thought was a little odd because it seemed to us that from the time we left to go fishing to the time we got back after seeing this thing, only 15 or 20 minutes had elapsed. In fact, I was sure of it.
It should still be blazing. It should still have flames 4, 5, 6 feet going up in the air.
It was just something we could never really explain. It was a mystery.
A mystery that would come to haunt them.
Come on, girls. Come on, Mares.
Claire and Diana would be the first to tell you that a firm schedule is the keystone of farm life. But one night, Claire inexplicably lost 2 hours of time, which not only disrupted their lives, but threatened her sanity.
No, not out of the bucket, out of there.
And for her, like the Weiners, it started with a light.
And I was driving toward the farm about 5 miles away. I saw lights in the sky, very quiet, didn't hear engine noises of a plane. Pulled over and got out of the car to investigate. In the blink of an eye, I was suddenly back in the vehicle and driving around the corner very fast on 2 wheels. It was some 4 miles farther down the road than I last remembered. My ears were bleeding, presumably because my earrings were in backwards. I also realized that I had an hour and a half or close to it of time that I could not account for. And didn't have a clue what had taken place during that time. Coming into the house, I think my first reaction was, thank God I'm here. I made it home. I'm in one piece. I'm sick to my stomach. I'm scared, I'm crazy.
My reaction to her first incident was, oh my God, Claire's going crazy. I've given her too much to do. There's just too much stuff going on and she really needs, some time off.
But then it happened again.
A couple of weeks later, I was driving back from a business meeting and saw lights ahead of me on the road. Suddenly, the inside of the cab of the truck lit up so brightly I couldn't see through it. My next conscious memory was landing very hard in the vehicle on the road, as if I'd been dropped from above. I was afraid to tell them this had happened again. I didn't want them to think I was crazy. I didn't want them to lock me up. I thought I was having a nervous breakdown. I've thought that a lot of times.
Claire is not the only one to be unhinged by missing time. In comedy, as in life, timing is everything. One night, on the way to a gig in Vermont, Fred realized he'd lost several hours, and his entire life began to unravel. For him, too, it started with a sighting.
All of a sudden, I see this thing. It looks like the Goodyear blimp. That's what I thought it was. These lights started flowing over it. It's keeping my attention. I'm thinking, well, there's the Goodyear blimp, and pretty soon it's gonna say Goodyear. In a few seconds, it's about the size of a volleyball. And I'm thinking, that's no blimp. Just as it's coming really close, a military plane comes by. As the military plane comes into view, the supposed blimp takes off to the north, and it outdistances the plane in a matter of seconds. It's gone. Got to the show, and I had one of the worst sets ever. I could not get the microphone to function for me. Every time I would pick it up out of the mic stand, the thing would short out on me as I got to a punchline. So I have to leave the mic in the stand for the rest of the show. The next comic gets up there. He has no problems with it. He can pick it up and use it without anything going wrong with it. 5 or 10 minutes down the road, I see the thing again. The lights are flowing over it. It covers itself with lights, and when it's all lit up, it starts descending sideways. It's not a blimp. And it kept coming down, and I'm looking at it. It's coming down. And it's out of control. It's gonna crash.
And then, nothing. It was all over. Only a haze remained.
The sky is all lit up red. I have to pull into a motel. I'm exhausted. I can't drive any further. It's 1:30 in the morning. It's 15 miles from where I started, and it's 3 hours later. So there's no way I drove the whole way at 5 miles an hour. I got a lot of missing time there. It's just, I don't understand.
You see a bright, inexplicable light in the sky, and you lose 2 hours of time. Something seems wrong. At first, you run over the episode in your mind, trying to make sense of it for yourself.
The next day, we woke up, broke camp, didn't talk much at all. In fact, I don't remember talking about it at all. We were kind of just within our own thoughts, just wandering around, doing our chores to break camp, and we didn't speak about it much at all. We broke camp, got in our canoe, started paddling away. Several hours later, we started remembering this light that we saw the night before, and that was when we really started discussing it.
If you can't make sense of what happened, you could try telling someone else. But if you do, you might discover, just as the Weiners did, that no one seems to believe you.
We signaled a ranger who we saw crossing the lake to come over.
We told him what we saw, and we asked him, if anyone else had reported seeing these things, if they had seen any of these things, what the hell's going on here?
We were sure someone else had seen it. Somebody else had to see this thing. It was enormous. So we told the ranger and his sidekick, Matt, and his reaction was, if it isn't the bears or the bugs the campers are complaining about, it's the doggone Martians now.
I guess I'm gonna just have to get out my ray gun, unquote, which we didn't think was very funny.
We said, no, we're not, this isn't a joke, we're not joking, this is for real, it really happened. And Charlie was smoking a pipe because he was trying to quit smoking cigarettes. And I remember he had his pipe there and he was trying to light his pipe. And the ranger said, I don't know what you've been putting in that pipe you're smoking there, boys, but I'd lay off it for a while if I were you. And we were like, oh, no, no one is ever going to believe us.
So nobody believes you. What would you do? The Weiners were on a simple camping trip. The first ranger told them not to go to Smith Pond because the water was too low, but they went anyway. Then they had a strange encounter with a light and lost 2 hours of time. The first person they told thought they were crazy, so they decided to drop it and go on with their trip. But the very next day, something happened that made them start wondering all over again.
The next day, we were on another part of the lake, and where the lake system turns into the river part of the Allagash waterway. And there's a stretch of rapids called Chase Rapids, Class 4. And my brother and I had never done rapids in a canoe. We were really worried about it because we had all this gear with us. So we wanted to portage. And we were talking to another ranger about portaging around the rapids, and he said, oh, well, what are you worried about? There are no rapids right now. And we were like, what are you talking about? It's 2.5 miles of rapids here. And he said, we just had a hurricane come through a week and a half ago, and the water level is like 2.5 to 3 feet above normal. So all the rocks are underwater. It's smooth sailing relatively, which I thought was really strange because when we first landed on the lakes, this other ranger told us that the water level was too low to go to Smith Pond. So to me, that was a direct contradiction. And in fact, we told him that. We said, well, that's a little odd because Ranger so-and-so told us that the water level was low for this time of year, and that's why we couldn't go to Smith Pond. I mean, as soon as we said that, this guy just turned his back to us and walked away and wouldn't talk to us anymore.
We thought this was the official reaction. That was the end of it. So it kind of discouraged us from making any other official reports.
When Claire told Diana about dropping from the sky on her truck and losing 2 hours of time, Diana didn't have to believe her. Diana is Claire's boss. She could have fired Claire and hired someone else, but she didn't. Perhaps it was loyalty or friendship. Or perhaps it was something else.
I tried to help Claire as much as I could, but she didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to deal with it at all. She was just hoping it would go away and it really wouldn't happen again.
I want everything normal. I want to be in control. And I felt very out of control.
But my reaction was completely different. I wasn't involved. I had nothing to do with it.
But when Claire had her second experience, Diana began to feel that she was involved. Diana's mind was set in motion, and for her too, a trickle of memories began.
She remembered a little bit more of that incident, and it seemed a little stranger to me, and it got me thinking to a time a couple years back when we had seen some really bright lights outside the back door and gone out on the porch and watched them, and we were just thoroughly fascinated that we have actually seen a UFO. So I started finding every book I could on the subject and started reading like crazy. It was fascinating to me.
Life on the farm had to go on. There were chores to do, pregnant mares to care for. But both women noticed that a blanket of strangeness had descended over their lives. Everywhere they turned, something seemed odd or out of place. At first, they chalked it up to imagination or coincidence, until disturbing events happened too often to ignore.
As Claire had more and more memories, it got stranger and stranger. She started having memories of strange hands. We connected the lights we'd seen a couple years earlier.
When we started becoming more aware of what was going on around us, we realized that there were an awful lot of very odd coincidences. Coincidences like journal entries that were on the computer disappearing entirely, lights going on and off by themselves, whether they're plugged in or not, televisions going on and off by themselves, clocks stopping consistently at 3 a.m. every morning, going to bed with clean-shaven legs and waking up with hairy legs. After a while, you start to wonder if these are really coincidences or if there isn't some other explanation for them.
I got concerned when I knew we couldn't handle it anymore. I knew we needed more help and more knowledge than we had. So I started looking through the phone book, and luckily I found the Fund for UFO Research. I called them and talked with them, and my first question was, is it possible for somebody to be kidnapped by a UFO? They didn't want to give us too much information from what they knew, but it just seemed that everything that Claire was telling them was all too familiar to them. It matched patterns that they knew about that we knew nothing about. And it was kind of frightening.
As we learned more and more about this phenomenon and began to remember more and more about it, both Diana and I began to realize we were associating everything that happened to us practically with this phenomenon, with abductions, with aliens, with UFOs, and we're becoming paranoid. We had to learn to separate what was real and explainable, although maybe a little strange, with something that was truly connected to what was happening to us. And there's a very fine line between the two.
My name's Fred.
When Fred returned from his failed comedy gig in Vermont, after a bizarre sighting and missing time, he couldn't help but tell someone. Sometimes he wishes he'd kept his mouth shut.
As soon as I got back to town, I mean, it was the only thing I could talk about. It was the biggest thing that had ever happened to me, and I couldn't keep quiet about it. But, you know, I was telling other comedians about it, and they're not the people to tell.
Fred's UFO stories started to damage his reputation in the business.
I told one agent one producer who was a former air traffic controller, and he just would have nothing to do with it. He just said, "Oh, you're talking to the wrong person here," and stopped giving me work.
But a damaged reputation wasn't the only problem Fred faced.
It just shattered my confidence. I mean, the key to doing comedy, to putting it over, is to be self-confident. And, you know, especially with the type of stuff I do, the self-deprecating stuff, it's right on the edge where if, you know, you don't do it right, the audience isn't going to buy it. I couldn't really focus on jokes when I've got UFOs plaguing my thoughts. I want my career back.
So, Fred writes to comedy clubs and agents, like a man in deep water, reaching out to those who can keep him from sinking. But in truth, Fred's nemesis now is his own mind. And until he reaches into it and digs deeper into the mystery of his missing time, he knows his career will remain on hold.
Coming up on Topx, a woman who believes her own body is being used as an alien breeding ground.
I have several memories of them taking children. Some reason for them to be producing these children. I just don't know what it is.
Learn what the experts say and hear the stories from the people who've been abducted by UFOs as we continue next on Topx.
What is it that drives a person to dig deeper into the mystery of missing time? After their trip, Jim and Jack Weiner tried to get on with their normal lives, but their lives weren't normal anymore. The first clue was a change in their artwork.
As soon as we got back from this trip, my clay work changed immediately. I was suddenly starting to make these really bizarre kind of objects, and they were very anthropomorphic. So, you know, I couldn't figure out why. All I knew was that, you know, before this trip to the Allagash, I was thinking one way, and after the trip, I was thinking another way. And my brother's work changed just as abruptly.
Before the trip, I did naturalistic paintings, landscapes, still lives, stuff like that. That's all I did in paint, oil paints. And as soon as I came back, I never painted again in oil paints. I never did a still life or anything. I just started making these bizarre, intricate mathematical drawings.
He said, "Jim, don't ask me, you know, how or why I'm doing this. I have no idea." It was almost like a total obsession.
Was it possible that something was buried in their subconscious, struggling to surface? The second clue was their dreams.
Years later, and it was only a few years later, I started having nightmares.
Really strange and disturbing nightmares.
Only they were recurring.
Recurring nightmares.
And that's the only way I can rationalize them to myself, because to me, they seemed almost like real events.
It would always start the same way, where I'd be in this space that I didn't know where I was.
In a room, on some kind of a table.
Jim and Charlie and Chuck were also there, and we were naked. I remember thinking, where are my clothes? And thinking, why are we all naked in this space? Feeling totally helpless, paralyzed. This creature or something, it was inhuman, would approach me from this haze, this bright haze, and it would just look in my face.
They seemed absolutely real to me.
I would feel terrified, absolutely terrified, unable to move, and I would wake up screaming, totally drenched in sweat, just going crazy.
And I was like literally petrified to the point where I was padlocking myself in my bedroom at night, you know, and I consider myself a fairly rational person.
At first, they tried to ignore the nightmares, but in the years since the trip, an accident had caused a head injury that left Jim with epilepsy. Now, lack of sleep was making his seizures worse. Jack was worried about him.
I said, well, what's keeping you up at night? And he said, you know, I don't really want to, you know. And I said, come on, if you can't tell me, who are you going to tell? I'm your twin. You can tell me anything. So he said, well, I've been having these awful nightmares. And he starts telling me the same nightmare. And I said, oh, this is really bizarre, because I've been having that same dream.
Two brothers in separate cities having identical nightmares, and they were getting worse.
My doctors who were treating me at Beth Israel Hospital for the epilepsy started to notice, and they started getting really concerned about it. And at first, I didn't want to talk about it. You know, I mean, I didn't want these people to think I was, you know, over the deep, deep end here. I wanted them to help me with my seizures. I didn't want them to think I was going crazy.
But alien abduction was not the diagnosis that Jim was expecting.
They eventually got out of me why I wasn't sleeping, and I told him about these nightmares. He said to me, well, geez, you know, Jim, I've heard this story before, and it sounds a lot like an abduction story to me. And I'm not sure that's what happened to you, but I've heard this before, and I think you should talk to somebody who's a professional in the field.
Enter Ray Fowler, well known in the world of UFO investigation for being tenacious and thorough. He's been a UFO investigator for 35 years. He also teaches night courses out of his home for the local community college. The most popular by far is the one on UFOs.
What I'd like to do is open the class up for an open discussion.
They seem to be able to travel in and out of our dimension. Do you think that they're...
Ray's family doesn't want to hear about his UFO work, so he's glad these students do.
This raises all kinds of questions concerning the origin of UFOs. Are they
His students provide him with a sense of community. But it's Ray's cases, like the Weiner investigation, that feed his hunger for work on the front lines of the UFO mystery.
A young man came up to me and told me about this missing time experience he had up on the Allagash waterway.
And I felt really, I felt totally stupid that I had to go and tell this guy this totally bizarre story, making myself look like a complete idiot.
And I politely listened for a while, and I sort of tried to get rid of him because I really wasn't that much interested. I get stories like this all the time. Then he mentioned his brother was a twin.
He said, wait a minute, you said you had an identical twin? And I said, yeah. And you said you went out with the fire, and when you came back, the fire was out, and only a few minutes went by, and he said, well, I think you better tell me the whole thing. I would like to hear your whole story.
And he said this sounded like a missing time case to him, and he wanted to know if we would go along with a more in-depth investigation. And my reaction to missing time, what the heck is he talking about, missing time?
He didn't say, oh, I believe you had a UFO experience. He said, well, I believe that you think something remarkable has happened to you.
We said, well, look, if you think it'll help, then sure, we'll be glad to answer any questions you want. We'll be, you know, all we can do is tell you what happened, what we remember.
The first step for Ray was to check the Weiner's credibility.
We went to people that they had talked to after their camping trip to see if they reported the same incident back in 1976 as they were reporting to us. We checked with the ranger, for example, that they reported to, the sighting, astronomical data, weather data. Very important to establish witness credibility by doing a rigid character reference check, checking with their employers, checking friends, and so forth. Later on, we did a polygraph test and a psychological test, and came pretty well convinced that these people were real, they're really telling the truth.
Jack didn't like the lie detector test. It's bad enough to be called crazy, but the implication that he might be making the whole thing up was even worse.
Because we aren't dealing with automobile crashes or plane crashes, we're dealing with UFO abductions by aliens who can take people at will and subject them to physical examinations. I mean, it's so far out and so bizarre that you've got to document these cases meticulously or no one's going to believe you.
And maybe not even then. There is no law enforcement agency that investigates alien abduction, no toll-free number to call. And Claire, unlike the Weiners, had no access to Ray Fowler's services. She did have Diana, who started reading books on the subject. But the more Diana read, the more she began to fear that she too was involved.
Unfortunately, when I got into, finally found some of the books that were dealing more with abductions, I started getting scared because I kept thinking, gee, that sounds awful familiar.
Diana's reading raised the alarming possibility in her mind that not only had both women been abducted, but they had been abducted together as children.
I guess what was really strange about when we started talking about our childhood memories, we seemed to have very similar memories, like we'd gone through the same experience, that we knew each other, but we'd never met till 8 years ago. We never knew each other in childhood.
We couldn't have known each other in childhood.
No, I lived all over the country. Claire lived in Virginia.
So how could we possibly have these memories of being together as children when we couldn't possibly have been together as children?
Unless something had taken them from their homes, brought them together, and then returned them to their unsuspecting families.
I remembered an incident when I was about 12 years old, and it was during the summer when we were out on a picnic. I was out with friends from school. I recalled moving away from my friends and sitting on a picnic bench waiting. And I was very annoyed. I remembered being annoyed because I was waiting for her. I looked around and there she was. I recognized her, but yet I didn't because she had an English accent and I didn't know anybody with an English accent. Also, she was wearing a uniform. She had this jacket.
Yeah, that's what triggered it for me. When Claire told me how old she was, it made me about 9 years old, and I lived in England at that time. I went to English schools, British schools, and I had a blue jacket, just like the one she was describing. It was my uniform jacket from school. And what was even stranger than that was I had kept that jacket, and I knew exactly where it was.
And I described the emblem.
And I pulled the jacket out, and it was exactly the same.
With the same emblem on it. At that time, I was not aware Diana had ever lived in England. I didn't know that.
We couldn't explain that one away.
A school jacket from long before they had supposedly ever met, with an emblem that both women clearly remembered. Claire and Diana began searching their past, comparing childhood memories.
How old are you in this one?
Claire would think of something and write it down on a piece of paper, and then she'd ask me a question, such as, imagine you're a small child, and you have this box in front of you, what would you do with it? And my immediate reaction is I would turn it inside out with my mind, because that's exactly what she had been made to do with the box. She remembered 2 small children, herself, and another small blonde girl, being in this room and being forced to figure out what to do with this box. And it was, turn it inside out with your mind.
Memories of children forced to play games of the mind. But why? And by whom?
These same beings, whatever they were present whenever we were present.
Always in the background, somewhere just on the edge of your vision, there was one of these great guys.
At least one.
At least one.
Watching.
But not all the games were so innocent.
The fire stick was not a fun time. We both had memories of being in a round room with one of the gray guys with this stick. And he would throw the stick and it would whiz around the room. And we would try and catch it, but it would burn. I remember us standing back to back in this room with this fire stick whizzing around, knowing that it would hurt anytime it touched us. And finally coming to the conclusion that we together had to make that stick go back to that alien. We could control it with our minds.
But it was scary in the sense that somehow the rules had changed. Now, instead of there being sort of a learning, fun, new kind of, we don't have these games at home, to an experience that was frightening, intimidating, where there was only one way out. And what if you never got it right?
Fred's career isn't the only thing affected by his experience. His plans for family and home are also on hold.
This is my 30-year renovation project. This will be a kitchen. Got the washer and dryer in. Well, the dryer's in. Washer's the next project. Got 3 floors here. The other 2 don't look quite as good as this.
A man who suspects he's being abducted finds himself on a runaway train. The people in his life must either ride with him or get off to save themselves.
Nina and I have been together for the last 10 years. She's everything to me. It's we've been engaged for a long time, and she doesn't want to believe that it can possibly be real, because I mean, apparently from what we've read, what I've read, it's a ongoing thing through generations, and she's deathly afraid that it'll affect our children if we ever have any.
Some members of Fred's family are willing to consider the possibility of abduction. Others refuse even to discuss it.
My mother and my brother and my sister all accepted it. My little sister didn't want to talk about it, and I think she may have been involved in some way. I had a memory that came back to me where I found this like a puncture wound on me as a kid. I started to examine it, and then I just sort of brushed my hand over it, and I said, "Don't look at that, it's all right, it'll go away." And I forgot about it. I saw the same mark on my little sister, and I asked her, I said, "What's that?" And she said, "It's okay," and she brushed her hand over it and said, "Don't look at it, it'll go away." And for some reason, I did. I let it go, and I didn't even think about it after that. In here is going to be my family room if I ever get a family.
Us and our whole family.
Yeah, right. No.
The twins never used to think twice about their childhood. Confronted with a strange being who appeared now and then, their young minds created an innocent explanation. A ghost they named Harry.
And really, when Ray asked if there was anything strange about our childhood, it was more like what wasn't strange about our childhood. Then I felt something sit on the edge of the bed. I was expecting to see my mom, and there was no one there. There was absolutely no one there. So I thought, well, I'll just hide under the covers. And no sooner did I get the covers up over my head when they started being pulled back down. Next thing I knew, it felt as if someone had grabbed me by both feet at the same time and started pulling me down off the bottom of the bed. Well, by that time, I was going ballistic. Things like that used to happen, and we really never knew what to think of it. It was just Harry. Harry, that was the only explanation we could come up with. A ghost.
You're watching Topx on TBS Destination Sunday.
Remember, no pain and so forth. When you have someone who has suffered a traumatic experience, something that's so awful that they've buried it in the unconscious portion of their mind, hypnosis is very, very valuable, and it opens the doors for these things to come out.
Ray decided hypnosis was the perfect tool to open up the Weiner's missing time experience. So he brought in a hypnotist to help with the case.
Ray suggested that part of his investigation include hypnotic regression sessions.
And my reaction was, well, hypnosis? I mean, this is kind of getting carnival-like, isn't it?
I felt a little apprehensive about it because I had never been a believer in hypnotism. I'd always been skeptical.
In fact, I remember even saying, you're never going to hypnotize me. For one thing, I'm not really even sure I believe in this stuff, but he definitely put me into a state of hypnosis, a deep trance. And it was amazing. And it brought me right back to the night. I could smell the water in the air, the pine smell in the trees that night. It took us back to the point where the beam came down on us. Suddenly, this intense pressure just vanishes before my eyes. 1 second he's there, and the next second he's gone. I was going to faint, like I was losing. My body felt like it was just going to explode.
Many of these people, when they come out of hypnosis, will say, where did those memories come from?
Where do memories of abduction come from? Ray first learned what the subconscious can reveal on the case of Betty and Barney Hill. At first, Ray and his colleague, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, were skeptical of the Hill story. But when they witnessed their hypnosis sessions, the intensity of Betty and Barney's emotional anguish was too great for Allen Hynek to ignore.
Dr. Hynek found the Hills to be reputable people. They were very, very convincing. They were not just recounting the story, but they're actually reliving it in fear, trauma, emotion.
Dr. Simon hypnotized Betty and Barney for me. Barney cried out with such terror and such anguish that I just couldn't think that he could have been faking that.
Ray remained skeptical of the Hills until he learned of other people telling similar stories.
And as other cases came along, they contained the same benchmarks as the Hill case. So I feel that now that the case is legitimate, but then I thought these people, something was wrong with them.
Betty and Barney knew what people would think of them if the revelations of their hypnosis sessions leaked out. Since then, many others have experienced the ridicule the Hills so greatly feared.
The hardest thing in the world was the first time we said out loud to somebody who didn't know what we were going through, this is what we're going through.
You know, I hear all kinds of things from people, from you're a total luno to you're delusional and every other kind of negative criticism. And these things hurt people.
They don't understand. It would be preferable. If we're crazy, we could get treatment for it. There is no treatment. You just survive it.
So when people like Fred turn to Ray, asking for advice on uncovering the secrets of their missing time, he warns them of the dangers ahead.
My advice usually to these people is this: if you can live with what you can remember, just consider it one of those things which we have no real explanation from, one of the mysteries of life, and try just to live a normal life and put this in the background. Now, Fred has come to the conclusion that it's on his mind all the time and it's causing him a lot of problems, and he really wants to know what happened during this missing time. Fred should be forewarned. It could either open Pandora's box, something really could have happened, the UFO abduction experience, or nothing at all.
It could help me. It could utterly shatter me. But I'm better off knowing, I think.
Although he's not investigating Fred's case, Ray has agreed to accompany him to his hypnosis session. The hypnotist will be Tony Constantino, the same man who hypnotized the Weiners. This time, Fred will sit in the chair.
We'll sit you down with Tony, and he'll put you into I would call a light state of relaxation, and we'll just ask you to tell us what happened.
And make me cluck like a chicken.
There is a risk, because once his missing memories are retrieved, Fred will have to live with them forever.
This experience will be in your conscious mind for the rest of your life, and there may be more questions than there are answers for, and you might be a little bit more disturbed than you are now just about the missing time.
I'm aware of that.
Here we are.
Okay, I'm all set.
Yeah, well, just relax. Believe me, you will be relaxed in a few minutes.
Let's hope.
You're watching Topx on TBS Destination Sunday.
and the fact that we never, ever truly forget anything. And now allow that orange to lighten into the color yellow.
What Fred is about to uncover may grant him permanent membership alongside Jim, Jack, Claire, and Diana in one of the world's strangest and most exclusive clubs. Those who believe they are victims of alien abduction. It starts with being taken against their will.
They have me. I'm trapped.
One night, Claire had just called to bring the dog in at night. I had just gone upstairs to go to bed. And she called me downstairs. Giant, huge UFO sitting over the orchard.
The beam came down on us, this hollow beam.
It was as if it were alive. I don't know how to explain it. It just started doing something.
I remembered feeling this intense pressure.
This light is affecting me somehow, but I didn't know how.
I was losing my sense of balance.
Out of control, not knowing what was going on.
My body felt like it was just going to explode, like it was going to rip apart into 1,000 pieces, and all this is happening at once.
They find themselves somehow transported to a place unlike any they've ever seen.
And where are you?
I don't know.
We're in this huge, giant cavern. It was bigger than any cave I've ever been in. Bigger than 4 or 5 airplane hangars or something, and it was filled with people.
We were separated into smaller groups. Diana was in a different group than I was.
Then the next thing I remembered was being in this room somewhere.
It's this brightly lit space.
Sitting on a bench that came out from the wall like a slab. They were completely naked, had no clothes on, and they were just sitting, staring in front of them as if they were dummies.
Then an otherworldly being emerges.
They're horrible. They're not human.
As I was laying on this slab, this shadowy figure seemed to emerge out of this bright light towards me.
They looked like bugs.
It was not a person. It was not human.
They look like emaciated, almost colorless, although more gray.
And they had these fingers. There were 4 fingers.
They're 3.5, 4 feet tall. Sort of this dull shade of gray. They have oversized heads.
Very, very thin necks, like pencil-thin necks.
These huge kind of eyes, like insect-type eyes.
The huge eyes are what scare me the most.
Black, deep, deep black.
The depth goes on forever.
They look at you, and it's almost as if they're drilling you with these eyes. I mean, it's like they're draining your brain or something.
No words are spoken, but thoughts are somehow communicated.
It's not like speech, but they're communicating to each other.
I remember thinking, how on earth are they doing this? I'm not hearing them in my ears, I'm hearing them in my mind.
Sometimes I see pictures, and I translate them to mean what those pictures mean to me.
They keep showing us these things, these horrible scenes of destruction.
And then there was this cryptic message that you must cooperate. You will cooperate.
They find themselves paralyzed by some alien force.
They said, come with me, but I wouldn't just go with them.
And do you see yourself going with them?
I'm trying to resist.
I felt totally helpless. I had no idea what their motives were. I just kept thinking, why aren't those guys doing something? Because I knew they were close by.
I couldn't move my legs. Whatever it was paralyzed my muscles.
Then begins a bizarre examination of their bodies.
The real traumatic part of it was when it finally touched me.
I got very frightened for Jack.
They had instruments that they were scraping me with. They put this thing in my ear and my nose. They were looking at my eyes.
The focus turns to the reproductive organs.
Played with my groin and took my sperm.
It seemed like they were taking sperm samples somehow.
Suddenly my mind was filled with these, the only way I can describe it is like sexual acts.
It's intrusive. It is violating.
And I became sexually aroused, and they came out with this, some kind of device, and collected a semen sample.
They're holding my legs down. No, it's not.
It's okay. Just relax.
The nightmare worsens as unspeakable procedures transpire.
I was lying on this table where they lowered something just kind of came out of this light that was over me and came down close to my chest.
And they turned the center lens on, which was bright red. It burned.
I was thinking about survival.
I kept thinking, this is the next thing they're going to do is slit me open from one end to the other.
These things seemed evil to me.
They stuck a needle in my eye and then popped my eye out of my head.
And put the tube right up against your eye. These little metal things come out and they reach right around the eyeball. They pulled it right out.
Does it hurt?
Oh, yes. They say it's going to be all right, but they took my eye out. I just can't believe they did that.
I'm going to count from 1 to 10. Please keep your eyes closed until I reach the count of 10. When I reach the count of 10, please open your eyes. You will certainly be aware. You will be alert, fully in control. You will remember every single thing that happened, every single thing that was said. You will remember as much of this as you choose to remember.
The deed is now done. Fred's hypnosis has uncovered memories beyond his worst nightmares. Fred now believes he was abducted.
Open your eyes on 10.
Fred now remembers that the UFO he saw didn't crash. It overtook him. He remembers aliens taking him out of his car, conducting a physical exam, taking his sperm, removing his eyeball. And worst of all, he now remembers other abductions, going all the way back to his childhood.
Do you remember?
Yes.
And Fred is not the only one who remembers, not the only one to delve into the dark recesses of his brain and face the aftermath.
We did open a real can of worms.
You're ours. We own you.
Reliving some of these experiences.
Why are you doing this to us?
Emotions and memories.
You have no need to know.
I don't know if I want to know more.
Something has to be the answer.
When is it going to happen again? When are they going to do this to me again? I won't know. I can't stop it.
What do you do next?
You're watching Topx on TBS Destination Sunday.
It was the size of a 2-story house.
A gripping chronicle of close encounters with aliens you'll never forget. Call now and you can experience the mystery of Abducted by
UFOs on TBS.
Introduction. Please welcome a man with no last name. Simply Fred. Hi, how you doing? My name's Fred. Go ahead, laugh if you want. It's not an easy thing not having a last name. It's not, because like a lot of times people call you by your last name. So, you know, I hear silence. I think somebody's trying to call me. Makes it really tough.
For the first time in over a year, Fred is preparing to get back up on stage.
Last night I had the worst.
He was hoping that hypnosis would help him move forward.
I had this dream.
But when hypnosis brings forth images of alien abduction, is knowing better than not knowing?
But I didn't know whether I had woken up.
Will it help him revive his career? And even now, he still doesn't know why he would have been abducted in the first place.
I often have the impression that they scanned me and discovered I was a comedian, and they're like these intergalactic jokers who said, well, hey, there's a comedian. Nobody will ever believe him. Life is so hard. Takes up all my time. Everywhere I go, people try to make it difficult for me. Try to buy gas. Guy wants to know what my license plate. Right. I look like I have a head for details. I gotta walk back out to my car, bend down, wipe off my license plate so I can read it, and then repeat it over and over in my head, you know. Walk back up there and say it's F-R-E-D. I don't know how many times that's happened. I haven't come to any real conclusions about what they're doing. But if they are here, I get the impression they've been here a long, long time. Maybe as long as we have.
Those who feel they are being taken cannot help but speculate. Why? Why did they pick me? What do they want? The questions are unending and the answers elusive.
It seems that the more questions you ask, the more questions it creates rather than answers. I mean, I was hoping to get answers, like who they are, where are they from, you know, why are they here, what are they doing? And all I've gotten from it is, you know, what other people think they're doing, but I've never really got any definitive answers. It seems as if Jack and I had been abducted since we were children, and they've been following us, you know, through our lives.
It makes you feel as if you're part of something bigger, that there's some type of plan.
I think they're definitely involved in some type of genetic experimentation with humans, and I think that the twin thing is probably significant in this case, because just by seeing two people who are exactly alike, to them, says that there is a way of cloning humans. Ready for the big top now.
The heart of Claire and Diana's business is breeding, and natural selection has nothing to do with it. If anybody knows about creating perfect specimens through genetic manipulation, it's these two women.
I think it's like one very large, very complex research project. And where one of the I am Diana is, other people are lab rats.
Well, let's see what we got in here. Looks like we got about 180 cc's. Go ahead and take a sample of that. We'll see what we got as far as how alive it is, motility, mobility. We'll see how much extender we have to put in it before we ship it.
Whatever their agenda is, whatever the ultimate purpose is for all of this physical stuff, for all of the genetic, all of the intrusions, the intrusive behaviors, all of that is obviously connected to whatever their agenda is.
What have you got in there as far as mobility and motility?
I'm really good about
Claire and Diana never used to think twice about the breeding work they do with horses until they started to believe their own bodies were being used as an alien breeding ground.
When I was 25 years old, I had a total hysterectomy. And the reason it had to be done is because I had so much damage to my reproductive organs. And according to all of the doctors that were present during this surgery, the damage was caused by countless pregnancies that were never completed. I would be pregnant. They wanted to know how many times I'd had miscarriages, how many abortions I had had. And I had no abortions. I had a miscarriage in a sense that that's what the doctors told me I had, but they never found a fetus. And yet I recall being pregnant. I recall having them tell me that I could see the baby some other time. That they were taking it, but I could see it later.
I've also been presented with children that I've been told were mine, that they have taken from my body. I have several memories of them taking children, very, very small fetuses from my body, and then later being presented with those children and being told that they were mine. I know there's some reason for them to be producing these children. I just don't know what it is.
If this is happening, are these twisted alien games or part of a strategy? In speculating about possible alien intentions here on Earth, perhaps it would be wise to turn the question around and ask ourselves, what would we do in their place?
If, for instance, NASA someday were to investigate a civilization in some other solar system and found that civilization to be several steps below our state at that time, then we would know enough about psychology and sociology to realize that the worst thing we could do would be to just barge in and snow them. They would just either cause panic or worship. What a smart group would do would be to slowly infiltrate, slowly begin to affect the mass mind and get them conditioned to the idea that they might be visited someday. Slowly, the mass mind begins to accept the idea that, well, it's not so unusual. Yeah, sure. You know, the way in science things have very frequently gone. The first step is complete disbelief. Then there comes a stage where they say, well, you know, it might be so. And the third and final stage is, oh, I knew it all the time. And Bernard Shaw said all great ideas, you know, begin as heresies.
Some of us began to think that maybe we're dealing with something that is able to penetrate our dimension from another dimension. Dr. J.L. Hynek, toward the ends of his life, was also looking at all the evidence as a totality, and slowly but surely seemed to be leaning to this conclusion himself.
But while science is debating paradoxes and paradigms, these people are just looking for ways to cope with lives of uncertainty.
We don't know why this is happening. We don't know why we were brought together. It's still as big a mystery, I think, as it was 3 years ago when we first found out about this. We don't know where it's leading.
We try and keep a sense of humor, and we try and keep a sense of reality about it because we know that they're out there. That's kind of a unique thing to know.
But the Weiner brothers also know that many people find their reality hard to accept, even their own mother. When even your own mom has trouble believing you, a sense of humor comes in handy.
And then after she sees his son, Joan Rivers, all of a sudden we're credible.
Yeah, right. Now she believes everything.
Yeah, because it's been on TV.
Yeah, it's on TV. Okay, now we believe him.
True.
It's got to be true. Yeah, seen it on the tube. I think that's hilarious.
4 days after Fred's hypnosis, 4 days after his subconscious released images of aliens removing his eyeballs. With alien abduction, not comedy, on his mind, Fred prays he still has his sense of humor. He'll need it, because in a few hours, Fred will get up on stage in front of 500 people and attempt to make them laugh.
I haven't gotten on stage in over a year. I don't know how it's gonna feel. You know, I hope it flows for me. I hope I can just handle it. This'll do. Testing. Hello. How are you? Beautiful. This'll work. I can do this. How are you, man? Good. You gonna sit right there? Beautiful. I like to see people sit right up front. This isn't like church, you know.
How are you feeling after this hypnosis thing? It's been a couple of days now. What's the result?
It's been good and bad. It's helped me. I don't worry about driving around at night. Because they can get me wherever I am. I told my girlfriend about what had happened, and she doesn't know whether to believe it or not. She says it's impossible, you know, which is what I said, but she did say we're definitely not having kids. I've been trying to focus on this set. I haven't been able to, quite concentrate. I don't know if I want to continue investigating it. You know, I may just want to say I'm better off forgetting.
How you feeling about tonight, about coming back?
Nervous.
Like that joke, that's why I do it. He's got a great sense of humor.
I don't know what comes next.
I think you want.
Thanks. Okay, I have to bring this this next guy right up because he's just a fantastic act, and he's a very good friend of mine. And he's here for you right now. We're very glad to have him here tonight. Let's get a big round of applause for Simply Fred.
Hi, how you doing? Good. My name's Fred. Hi. I didn't have a lot of friends when I was a kid. They always used to ditch me. So I had an imaginary friend. He used to ditch me. No, I didn't really have an imaginary friend. I only thought I did.
Fred's gig went okay that night, but that doesn't change the fact that his life will never be the same, nor will Claire's, Diana's, Jim's, or Jack's. No one on Earth can say with any certainty what really is happening to these people. Even they aren't sure. But whatever it is, their journey has not been easy. And for each of them, there are hundreds, perhaps thousands of others who also wonder, what do they want? And why did they take me?
I don't know, hopefully it's some sort of organic brain disorder. And then the rest of the world is safe. But if it's not...
But if it's not a brain disorder, then what? No one knows how this story will end, but it might be wise to take heed. Because one day, you too could find yourself saying, it starts with a sighting, then a slip in time.